already. I'm not sure I've ever been introduced as part of the 3 A's, but that maybe is the new tradition. So welcome to the session. This is about creating a social internet. And it's really about creating a social internet to help you create a social strategy within your business. My name is Andrew Dixon. I'm the SVP of Marketing at a company called Igloo Software, a company you probably have never heard of before unless you went to the party on Sunday, which I understand was incredible. We produce social business software. That's really the technical term for the category. But you should think about us as delivering modern social intranets that either augment or replace what you currently use today in your organization, be that SharePoint. We augment and replace SharePoint all the time. In fact, we've got a story about that with Anna and Nextel today. Or if it's a homegrown solution, perhaps, that you've got in your organization, or maybe it's just a shared drive that you use as a way to be able to collaborate. We build upon that and help you to connect your people together and connect people to information. I think you're really going to enjoy this session because it's all about lessons learned and best practices associated with creating a modern social internet. And the way we've decided to do it is rather than have me speak as a vendor, we decided to use the voice of the customer. And so we've brought in two great guest speakers that I'll introduce, who are going to share their insights associated with doing just that, creating social intranets within your organization. And so first I'm going to introduce Adam Wasserman. He is the senior consultant at Prescient Digital. Prescient is a consulting company. And Adam and team went out and surveyed something like 650 different companies on their use of social media tools. And as a result, he's come back with top 10 tips associated with deploying your social internet. So very, very it is data based on 650 people. Significant. And that'll be something that Adam will start off with. And then what we're going to do is change gears and go over and talk to Anna Camargos, who is from Nextel International. Now, Nextel, of course, a very well-known telecommunications organization, and Anna is going to share with us the journey, essentially, that she went on deploying a global intranet across 6 different countries, all networked together. So you can imagine there's a couple of lessons learned there. There's both the good and the bad, and she'll share all of that. And there's a connection between the two of them, because Prescient was actually used as the consulting group to help with the deployment at Nextel. So a very nice sort of dovetail story that we've got and prepared. And then we're going to end the whole thing with Q&A. Maybe we'll do some interactive Q&A throughout, depending on how timing goes. But we wanted to make sure that we address all the questions that are out there today. So before we start, what I want to do is sort of frame the conversation a little bit with a question for the audience. And that is, without even defining what I'm talking about in terms of a social strategy, how many of you feel as though you have a defined social strategy within your company today? Just by a show of hands. So not a lot. I'm seeing just a few people. Okay, so for those few people, do you have a sense for, within the organization, who or what is driving it? Because what I mean by this is it can be driven top-down, the office of the C-level with a top-down solution that's pushed down, or it can be bottoms-up. How many people have the effects of BYOA, BYOD coming into your organization? That's starting to define and shape your social strategy, because when you bring in apps like Dropbox, for example, and Box, that starts to become your social strategy, and that's a bottoms-up type approach. And then there's obviously the nice mix of both of those two things coming together. So maybe start thinking about that, maybe the early adoption of technology within your organization. Where's it coming from? Who's driving it? Is something that you should be looking out for. So, having asked you how many people have a social strategy, I thought maybe it makes sense to actually define what I'm talking about, at least in the context of this presentation. So when I talk about social business, what I'm not talking about is social media monitoring. This is the tools like Radian6, for example, who go out and monitor how your brand is being perceived out in the marketplace. Is it positive? Is it neutral in tone? What's the frequency of your brand being brought up on online conversations? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about social business software, which is quite literally the introduction of modern communication and collaboration tools, such as wikis, microblogging, forums, the ability to follow content, the ability to rate content, These are all modern communication and collaboration tools that you don't associate with today's intranets. Bringing those into the organization for the purposes of productivity. That's really what we're talking about. This is not Facebook for business. This is about productivity and how people generally work together. It takes lessons from what we learn in the consumer world, but it applies them very much in a business setting, and that's what the context around social business. So with that said, I'd like to call up the first guest speaker, Adam Wasserman from Prescient Digital. Adam.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you. So there's actually two presentations in one here. One is the current state of the social intranet. So that is coming from our study. We surveyed 650 different companies, and we've been doing this for a number of years. So we actually have a longevity, a lot of different data that we keep leveraging and keep seeing how things have changed in the environment. And then I'll take you through the 10 steps to building a social intranet. So a lot of information, and I think you'll get a lot of nuggets out of this. So the agenda, who I am. I've been working at Prescient for the last few years now. My background, I have my MBA, my Bachelor of Business Administration, my PMP, and my background's really in marketing, in consulting, and in advertising. So a lot of that I brought into the intranet world. Who Prescient is, they've been in the business more than a dozen years now, and really one of the leading intranet consulting companies. For intranets, it's a very small market of actual consultants who go out there and try really understanding what's there. Here's just a list of some of our clients. And we've also developed the first intranet methodology. And I find that this is very valuable. So starting at the assessment, doing interviews, doing focus groups, doing heuristic site assessments, understanding what is your issues, where right now are some of the shortcomings. Moving into a planning phase to understand how do we start building this thing. Let's create the reports. Let's create strategy and governance and information architecture and your functional plans and all the pieces, the wireframes, to actually build something that makes sense, that fits in with those needs, with the assessment. Then it's a matter of choosing a technology. Is Igloo the right technology for you? Should you be using SharePoint? Should you use something else that's out there? There's a lot that's there, and we need to find what actually makes sense for you and for your company and for your needs. Then there's the implementation phase. So let's actually build it. Let's get this thing rolling and forget about just the planning. Let's put this into action. And then the adoption. Let's make sure this is used. There's a lot of intranets out there that, for whatever reason, are not being used. Maybe it's the lack of the assessment, the lack of the planning, or it's the communication. And I know all of you really understand that communication piece and just how important it is to make sure that it's adopted. And we were the first to define the social intranet, which Andrew has already spoken a little bit about. So where do we stand right now with social intranets? And I like to show this graph because technology is a nice chunk of what makes an intranet work. But it's only really a third of that equation. There's also the process and there's the people. And those are just as important. The people is what's at the very top, what's making this thing tick. That's the executive support. That's some of the governance that you need to have. And I'll give you some statistics later about just how important having proper governance and having executive support is to making an intranet successful. But there we see 10% of organizations have a true intranet, a true social intranet. Very low. It's not because of the technology. Technology really is the easy part here. There's so many good vendors. Again, Igloo being one of them and being very appropriate for a lot of needs. But SharePoint, and there's a lot of other intranets you can do. So technology is not the issue. It's having the process in place. It's having the people in place and making it all happen. And those are the harder parts. Change management, I know all of you understand just how difficult that is to really implement. If you were at that last session, the breakfast session, they spoke about that as well. And just how hard it is. You can't change the minds in 6 months. It takes a lot longer. It takes a lot of effort to do that. And same is true with an intranet. Now, looking at some of our actual ratings, and it all boiled down to these. There's also the report, which you could have access to afterwards as well, the summary report, which goes into more detail. But I'll take you through some of the highlights of the survey. This is starting at the highest. So the highest rated component of an intranet right now is content. And I'm not surprised to see that. A 6.7, it's pretty good. I know it's not what you typically consider a high score, but according to our metrics, there's still a long way to go before it's perfect. I didn't expect to see any 9s here. So a 6.7 is already getting pretty high because content is good on the internet. There's a lot out there. The main issue here is some of it is out of date. Some of it is not accurate. There's not a lot of governance and ownership around it. So content that was relevant maybe isn't anymore, and it's not taken down. Yes?
When you talk about content there, is that static content that's written, or are you talking even already bringing in the social media?
It's not really the social piece, but it can be the news that's always coming in. It can be some of the multimedia. So think of it as any kind of more or less the static content that's on the page. Yeah, we'll speak to social as well in these rankings. So here's just an example of, again, a lot of content. Intranets are content sources. There's so much on there, and that's really the point of them and why an intranet was made initially, in order to house all of that content, taking off from a lot of the file drives that used to happen. Now, design. Again, design is rated pretty high, and that's because design is the first thing you can fix. I see so many clients who, well, we just redesigned our homepage last year. No, you didn't. You just put on some lipstick onto your homepage last year. You really didn't fix anything. Your search is still broken. Your information architecture still doesn't work. People still can't actually do what they want to do, but it looks a little prettier. So you get points for prettiness, and the 6.1 is your points for that. But again, it doesn't solve the underlying problems. Here's a pretty one that I've worked on for the Louisville Water Company. But design, again, that's easy. It's how is this functional? How is this actually working? That's the much harder component. Tools and applications. Again, it did okay because some intranets have a lot of tools. Other ones have very few. But having the tools is one thing. It's actually, are they meeting your business requirements? Are they being used? And how are they being used? That's more important. So just knowing that you could turn things on, again, using SharePoint as an example, there's many, many tools. And if you turn them all on, they're not all going to get used because people don't understand even how to use them or how to go about making value out of those. So having the tools isn't much. It's really, what are you doing with it? Again, lots of tools. Usability and information architecture. Here, we're starting to get into some of the lower grades because people have not laid this out intuitively. I like to think of it from two standpoints. Somebody who's brand new to the company today, are they going to be able to find their way around the internet by clicking around? And how about somebody who's been there for 20 years? Are they going to be lost? Because again, we've spoken about change, and change is challenging. So think of it from those two very different ways, and I think you'll find what sort of makes sense. And don't worry so much about are you 2 clicks away. That's really a bit of an older approach. It's more, what's the path? And try limiting your choices, maybe less than 8 choices on every part of that tree. And again, get things as close as possible, but there's lots of ways to get it close. So here's an example from First American on what types of information architecture is, what some of those tools are. Along the top, that's what you think of. Those are the actual banners, that first level navigation. But there's the search, which can be tied into information architecture. There's also I need to, and have a question, and quick links. Those are all ways of getting to your information faster. So if I have a question, that's a list of FAQs that bring you into the data. Or I need to book a conference room, I need to find an employee. It's a lot of those quick functional links that you really have at your fingertips. And allowing people to add their own quick links really does help that as well. They know where they want to go. Let's just get them there from the home page as quickly as we can. Governance. Governance is a problem. This is typically why we're brought into the picture, because the site was good, but 2 years down the road, it's no longer good. There wasn't governance, there's no editor-in-chief, there's no proper processes, and suddenly things have gone a little haywire. So governance is an issue. Here's just an example of a governance model. No one governance model will work for everybody. You really have to think what makes sense for you, what committees and structures, what people actually matter. And I'd like to think of these more as tasks rather than actual people in each box. So one person may take more than one box, but all of these roles need to be encompassed within a governance model. Search. It's not a problem with the search mechanism. People always say, bring in the Google app, and suddenly it works. No, it doesn't work that way. It's the metadata. It's the data behind it. It's how people are coding the information that goes in that the search is going to be able to use. Google works because every website is linked to another website, and they have a lot of metrics around that and around the relevance and around reputation of each site. An intranet doesn't work that way. There's not that same connectivity. It works by understanding what your data is about and what you're actually looking for and making a match. So yes, you can help them with some best matches. I know if you're looking up jobs, you want the Career Center. Or if you're looking up holiday, you want maybe the latest holiday calendar. So not the 2001, which one of my clients keeps getting up whenever they search for that. So we could help you, but it's really about the metadata and about what's behind it that matters more. Just an example of search. Social media, here's the social media. It fails. And because social media is something very new, and I'm going to talk more about some of the specific tools that actually matter in a moment. But social media still is something very new in a lot of organizations, and there's still a lot of fear around it. This is from our intranet, and just one area of the social media where we used to share a lot of information, a lot of the news and happenings within our organization. Mobile still receives a failing grade, especially if you're using SharePoint 2010, it's going to fail. So mobile is something very new, moving more towards a responsive design, which changes as your size changes. So as you move from a computer to a tablet to a smartphone, it changes a lot of elements, so your view. So mobile is something very new that we're all trying to understand, and what information you're actually seeking when you're at a mobile device versus when you're at a computer or a tablet, which again is very different. So it's not just changing the view, it's about changing the use and understanding that use. But it's something that we're really trying to learn and still very much on the ground floor. So overall, we pass, but just barely. And we have been rating this over time, and it has been growing over time, but there's still a very far way to go to becoming a social intranet. So what are some of those most popular tools? We have instant messaging. Very critical. There's Skype or Link or whatever other service you're using that provides those quick answers. Again, we were talking about the younger generation, and I could tell you I've grown up with instant messaging. To me, it's much quicker than picking up a phone. It's much quicker than sending an email, and I just want to get that instant answer. So it's becoming very critical within a business to have that. Blogs, whether that's an executive blog, whether that's allowing every employee to write a blog or project teams to write a blog, this is becoming very pervasive within intranets. And for good reasons. It allows for more of that instant, free-form communication, less formal, so much informal, easier to write, and still very relevant. Here's an example from Connections. Discussion forums. Again, give me those answers, and give me a spot where I could ask the questions. And that's what a discussion forum is about. It's about just having that location where you could share your thoughts and see what others say. And this is becoming quite common as well within different intranets right now. Wikis. Andrew spoke a little bit about this. This is having that page that others can edit. Again, security can decide who edits it. But I like this to be like an acronyms. If you have a lot of acronyms within your organization, why not do it as a wiki and let anybody add their own? How about the employee handbook? It's always changing. So have that editable by certain people, so by your HR department. Or if there's regulations that are different in different countries or cities, have that editable as well, so everybody could add their own into a master document. So lots of ways you could use this. And it's, again, starting to become more common on intranets. User comments, very easy way to add social media. A lot of people are afraid, boy, if I just let them say anything in comments, what are they going to say? And is it going to be inappropriate? How many am I going to have to take down? But I don't see that as an issue. Like on an intranet, as long as their name, an employee's name, is tied to their post, it's the same as them sending an email, and they'll learn that very quickly. If this was anonymous, or in the case of a website, it's a different story. From my clients who have done moderation, they found that they've only maybe had to tear down 1 or 2 in a year or in a 2-year period of time. So it's so insignificant that having a flagging mechanism or having another way to just identify something as a potential problem is a much better approach from my experience. Okay, so that in a nutshell is again what was the findings from that report. But now I want to take you through some of how you build a social intranet based on 10 different steps. So having the overarching plan, an executive sponsorship, active communications or conversations, tools and functions, technology selection, the intranet governance, social media, policy, training, communication plan, and who's responsible. So it's a long list, but I'll take you through it. 1, having the plan. And this is probably the most important element in that whole top 10 list. If you don't have a plan, just forget it. This is, again, when IT takes over and decides we're building you an intranet, but they don't ask anybody what they want or what they need from a business perspective. And it just doesn't work. It may look nice and shiny, nobody uses it because it doesn't do anything useful. So understand what your business challenges are, what your workplace demographics are. So are people working at home? Are they mobile? Does it make sense to have mobile as a focus? The current hierarchy, so how is communication happening? And again, tie it into that. Employee engagement levels, social media, and other alternatives. If people are using Salesforce and are having their conversations there, does it make sense to have those same conversations on your intranet? Which one should apply? Just some, again, thoughts that you have to go through. 2, executive support. Look at that. This is coming direct from our survey. The greatest challenge for implementing social, it's not the technology, it's not the business case, it's not the cost, it's executive support. And that's where organizations fail if you don't have the people right at the very top buy into this. They won't be the ones using the intranet. Your CEOs are not going to touch the intranet. They have people to do that, but they have to understand the value. And that sometimes is the greatest challenge, is getting their buy-in. Making sure that they see that this is an initiative they have to continue to support. It's not just a one-time investment. This is something that has to grow, has to change, has to adapt over time. Start measuring. 6.3% of organizations that were surveyed measure their ROI. Come on. How are you going to get that executive support if you don't measure? How are you going to be able to get more money next year for your intranet if you don't have a business case and prove that it's meeting those objectives? So have your plan, but then measure. Here's, again, some metrics you could do it. I don't care what the metrics are, as long as they're agreed upon and they're able to be measured, and you could benchmark yourself. You could show that it's been growing over time, that your intranet's actually doing something useful for the organization. And intranet's often, again, the lesser of the two. The website gets the money. The intranet gets whatever's left. Don't let that happen. Prove that there's a point to this. Active conversations. Get people actively involved. Some of this, again, happens from the top. If your CEO is involved in comments, then others are going to start being involved as well. They need to see that it's okay to communicate, because this is a change in culture for a lot of organizations. They need to be motivated to contribute, but once they are, they will contribute. Tools and functionalities. I went through a whole list of tools, but tools are important. Just pick the ones that make sense. That's the greatest challenge, knowing what to turn on and what to leave off, and what to focus in your communications. Technology selection. Again, a lot of technologies out there, but make sure that the in-the-box solution matches your needs. It's much cheaper to apply an appropriate solution than it is to re-engineer something that doesn't meet your needs. So think about that. Again, using the SharePoint example, if SharePoint doesn't make sense, it's going to be very expensive. And if you don't have a whole plan, it'll be very expensive. Igloo makes sense for some organizations, but not all. There's many different intranet solutions, and you need to find out what your needs are so you could then do your RFP process and make sure that it is applicable for you. It's very expensive to do the actual programming and changes, and then as soon as there's an update to that suite, there's a whole cost to re-engineering it again. Also, I have better tools in my living room than they give me at work. We hear this a lot. Like, I have instant messenger at home, why can't I have it here? So start thinking that way, because people are used to Facebook and Google and all of these suites and YouTube. They want it to happen here too. Internet governance. Spoken to this already, but it really is critical. Have your organizational structure, your org chart, the rules and responsibilities. If not, it's just a hobby for people. They need to be paid for this and benchmarked for it, or it's just not going to get done. Decision making and the policies and standards. So a lot that goes on with governance. And again, this is often one of the biggest chunks and one of the most important chunks together with strategy. Social media policies. Again, you need those policies. If you're going to have some free reign and say people can comment, at least let them know the rules. Let them know where that box is so they can stay within it. Training. Training is critical. Yes, it should all be easy to use and Google-fied or Facebook-ified or whatever else. It needs to be easy. But there's a lot of features. There's a lot of areas. And most people never explore all the areas of their company's intranet, and they don't know half of the features. Whenever I do a focus group, people learn new things because suddenly others have told them, oh, I do it this way. Oh, I didn't even know you can. I didn't know that it worked that way. I hear that all the time. So start training. Every week, give a new tidbit, or every meeting at launch, have different sheets, set up kiosks. There's so many different ways. Make sure people understand what you're offering. Make sure they understand it, but one tidbit at a time. They can't take it all in at once. Have your communication plan. I know I'm speaking to the choir here, and this goes hand in hand with training as well, but make sure that it's in place. And lastly, who's responsible? Make sure that you actually outline that responsible. So not just governance, but also the one sheriff, that one editor-in-chief or intranet owner position that's responsible for the intranet. If you try letting everybody and run by committee, it doesn't work. You need to have somebody who, at the end of the day, they're the ones making the decision. And that's how the best intranets work. So I know I've covered a lot of information, but Anna's presentation is going to tie directly into this as well and show you how she used some of this methodology and some of these ideas around the social intranet to make it very successful for NII. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Adam. Some tremendous insights that are there. And now we move from the research component of what was done. And remember, I mentioned it was about 650 different companies that contributed to all of those findings, to the application of those insights in a real global intranet deployment across 6 different countries. You can imagine what would be involved in the complexities involved in doing so. In fact, this was, SharePoint was actually one of the products that was in use at the time in different versions and that sort of thing. So there was even a migration away from SharePoint. So for that, without further ado, I'd like to invite Anna up and share some of those insights.
All right. Since I'm short, I'm going to be up here. Actually, I'm Anna, and I'm the sheriff. I'm the sheriff of the intranet at NII, Nextel International Incorporated, and I'm an internal communications manager. I sit in the marketing department right now, reporting to corporate communications. And here's a little bit about NII. We are a Fortune 500 company. Our headquarters is based in Reston, Virginia, here in the United States, but our operations are all based in Latin America. We are a mobile communication company, and we have over 11 million customers in Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Peru. We are in total 15,000 employees, all in different countries, and we are ranked in the Great Place to Work list as one of the 25 best multinational companies in Latin America. So we are best known for, I don't know if anybody here remembers here when Nextel was available here in the US, the radio feature. Within a push of a button, you can speak to somebody else who has a radio as well. And this radio is also a cell phone. So this is still very popular in Latin America, and that's what we sell there. So here's the distribution of our operations. Our biggest operations are in Mexico and Brazil, and that's where most of our employees are. So here are the business challenges that we've been going through. So we are a growing company. We are moving and changing technology. We are moving from a 2G platform to a 3G platform. And we also have a multilingual-based employee. We speak English, Portuguese, and Spanish. We also introduced a new brand identity 2 years ago. We outsourced IT, and then we brought IT back in-house. So that was a lot of fun. We had multiple intranet technologies in each country. A lot of multinational companies face that kind of problem because each country has their homegrown solution or a SharePoint or something, and they don't talk to each other. Employees from different countries cannot access other countries' intranets. So the collaboration and communication within countries breaks down. There's no way to do that when you have different platforms. And it's also not very cost effective. We have a global employee engagement survey, and communications was always one of the areas for improvement. So, and we also went to Prescient because I worked in another company that we also did in the implementation of a global intranet. This is actually my second implementation. I'm sorry, this is gonna be the last one. I don't wanna do this anymore. But not to discourage anybody. So we got in touch. They did a good job for us in my previous company. We got in touch with them, and they did an intranet assessment for us. And they, via focus groups and interviews with key business leaders, we find out that it was very hard to find the right person in each country who was responsible for something that the employees needed to get it done. It was very hard to work in cross-country projects that we had going on because there was not a place for people to, that everybody had access so that they could share files, that they could share a calendar. They can develop a wiki with all what is going on in their project. So we identify a lot of inefficiencies that projects were slowing down because there was no place for people to share the information regarding those projects. So here's how was our intranets before this transition. As you can see, they don't even look like distant cousins. I mean, they are completely a hodgepodge. We don't seem that we belong to the same company. So when we launched the brand, at least we put some lipstick on, like Adam said, and we kind of at least look a little bit alike. We may be cousins, I guess. But we wanted to take this a little bit further. We wanted to create a global intranet, a place, and we had a mission for it, that it was to engage our employees through a global intranet that informs them about the business and connects them to our strategy, to our markets, to our customers, and to each other. So here's our objectives, because you don't start something without a plan or without an objective. So we wanted to deliver consistent information to our employees at the same time. It was very hard to us. We have a CEO message to push that out to all employees at the same time with the same consistent message. So that's why we embarked on this project. Another one, we wanted to increase employee productivity, allow employees to find the information they need to do their jobs fast. So they could search for something. I want to do my expense report. You search, you find the expense report too, and you do it right away. So we also wanted to improve the efficiency of collaboration. Like I said, we had a lot of multi-country projects, multi-departmental projects, and we wanted to give them a place, a team room, where people could collaborate and share information in a single place. We also wanted to support employee connections. You might know Latin America is a very social culture, as well as we are very heavy users of social media. So we wanted to bring that inside to help people build connections through our intranet instead of going outside to do that. And we also wanted to foster a sense of belonging to one single company. I'm not Nextel Mexico, I'm not Nextel Brazil, I'm Nextel. So that it's just not the country that you worked on, but a bigger company. So since we pay them good money, we decided to use Prescient methodology that he explained it quite well before. So we did the assessment, we started our planning, and then we did the technology solution. The technology solution, here's our basic selection criteria. We wanted something cost-effective, easy to use, and easy to train. We also want something that require less IT support. As you know, the intranet is always the poor child of the IT department. They don't have enough time to dedicate to us. So we don't want to take their time, so that's why we wanted to with a cloud solution, so that we lift the burden from IT and we went to a cloud solution. We also wanted something that allowed a two-way communication, a social intranet that allowed people to make comments on blogs, on company blogs, that they could create a wiki on their team room, that they could have their own calendars or their own blogs in their team rooms. And we also want something multimedia, so we can share the advertisements that we have going on in each market, so we could all see the advertisements that go on in the intranet. And we also wanted the ability to partner with our vendor and keep up with the technology trends. And that's why another reason that we went with the cloud solution, because with our IT department, headquarters was stuck on SharePoint 2. That was not even supported anymore by Microsoft. So we wanted to the ability to actually get upgrades as the technology progresses. And so that's why we went with a cloud solution. So, but as you know, we are all in internal communications. It's not about just technology. So we also introduced a new governance model. So here we have an intranet steering committee with some top-level VPs. We have the intranet owner, who is my boss. And I'm the editor-in-chief, the sheriff. And I'm responsible for the project and for the local headquarters intranet. And in each market, in each country, when I say market, I'm referring to a country, we have an editor-in-chief, who is the person in internal communications. We have our IT markets. We have a user group, which is like a focus group that we gather twice a year to get the opinion of the employees about the site. We have the team room administrators, who are responsible for a team room. And we have the content owners, which are people who are pushing content to all the employees, like, for example, HR, accounts payable, and stuff. Here we have terms of use. We introduce new terms of use every time you want employees to blog or make comments. You know, HR and legal go up in arms. Oh my God, what they're going to say. So we put a new terms of use on the website. And to this day, I never had a comment that was necessary to be deleted. I don't moderate the comments, and also I never delete one after it was posted. So it's still people can report feedback and abuse. The terms are available on the site footer, and the first time that they log in, they see it as well. We also introduced a new information architecture. We have our company, all the corporate information, news and media, all what's going on in the company and the company blogs, products and services, what we sell, employee resources, all the HR information, compensation, benefits. It's actually a wiki that HR updates regularly. And tools and applications, we have all the tools, and it's also in a wiki format. All the tools are listed, and information about them and links to them are in that area. We have a policy center and a form center. And, in the community, which is the area that we have a Twitter-like feed where employees can share the information about what's going on. So we have things like, for example, oh, I'm flying to Brazil. Does anybody going there? I need somebody to bring something to a team in Brazil. So it's that kind of information, or also the department marketing saying, we just launched PRIP in the US, come and see what we are doing. So those are the things that are shared via the Twitter feed like. So here's our implementation. We decided to roll out, this is in a phased implementation, and incorporating the lessons learned as we move to one country to the other. And it's not because you build that they will come. When we launched at headquarters, we had this adoption marketing internal communication campaign that will also be used, that will be translated and used in each market locally. So we have a teaser card, a launch card, we had a training, we had a campaign to encourage people to fill out their profile, a poster, and we distributed mouse pads to folks. So the connectors represent each country, and the connector is part of our logo. So here's how the login looks like. This is the actual site, and it's called Mundo Nextel because our new tagline, it's Our World Now, Tu Mundo Ahora in Spanish. And mundo means world, and it works in Portuguese and Spanish. And even headquarters, we use Mundo Nextel because it's a pretty common word, and people here, English speakers, would know what it is. So here is our homepage. It's very visual because we have, like I said, it's a young crowd, our employee base, so it's very visual. Here on the side, we have the news, the multimedia gallery below with our latest advertisements, company videos. And you see on the other side, you have the personalization and the collaboration that I'm going to show it in a minute. So it's a personalized user experience. Every employee have their own profile, their own contacts, their own team rooms, my own personal links, and my own subscriptions, content of people that you follow on the intranet. So here I have on my homepage, I have the list of my team rooms that I belong to. And actually, I can also put my personal links that can be internal or external. Here's an example of a team room where people can share and collaborate. They have access to create forums. They can share documents. They can create a team calendar, show everybody who belongs to the team, as well as there you can say contact with that person immediately, sending an email or something, or add that person to your contact list. Okay. So here's our employee profile. It's just not only about contact information. It's almost like a LinkedIn profile. People can put their, primary responsibility and secondary responsibility, and what languages they speak, previous work experience, because that all helps creating a connection, because I can go and search on my search, because the search can search not only content, but search people as well. So for example, if I went to University of Florida for my graduate degree. So if I wanted to find other alumni in my company, I can just type in University of Florida and find other people in the company who went to the same school I did. Or if I'm looking for somebody who does corporate responsibility in Brazil, I just search for who put corporate responsibility as one of their responsibilities. Yes, go ahead.
A really quick question on this. How much of this is reliant on the employee inputting, or how much is driven from your HR information system?
It's right now at this minute, it's 100% employee. It's what we put in is just name, last name, and email. So basically, we had a campaign to invite employees to fill out their profile, because at the end of the day, it's the employee who has the latest information about their own, I mean, HR is not going to know if somebody finished a degree, just finished a degree on something. HR is not going to know. So the employees are the most updated source of information. The thing is like getting the employees to update the profile. So what we did, we had a contest, and we had actually not a contest, a raffle to if those who actually fill out their profile 100% were entered in the raffle to win some gift cards. And also every time there is a new employee, we participate in the orientation, and we go over the intranet. And the first thing we ask the employee is to complete the profile. And we explain why it's important, because if you wanted to be found, if you wanted to that you are become an expert in your field in the company, you need to fill out your profile so people can find you.
One more question.
Yes?
About the adoption.
Mm-hmm.
How much adoption did you get, and did it vary among staff class level, from like executives to lower staff class?
An adoption in filling out the profiles?
Yeah, and the whole social part of it.
Well, the filling out the profiles, I think we got, I can't remember because, sometimes you just wanted to forget what happened. But we got a few people, we got a lot. We got maybe 60 or 70% of the people doing their profiles completely. And then what we did, we came in and we put at least the contact information for the reminder of them. We manually, I had because this we are talking just headquarters, so it's only 300 people or less. So I had an intern to come in and put the contact information for the other people who had not filled in. As far as the social aspect of it, the team rooms got a big uptake, especially in the engineering and the IT department. They are the ones who have a lot of documentation and need to share that with the other markets because they are more cross-platform than cross-country than the other departments. So the team rooms got a big uptake with both IT and engineering. For HR finds it great because now they don't have to answer the same questions all over again. They just send people links to the intranet because they have their wiki under human resources with all the information about everything. As far as comments, it depends on the blog, on the type of blog. One time we got a lot of comments and a lot of readership in human interest stories. We started a blog channel talking about what employees do on their own time, that it was good for the community or was great or something. So we had an employee who climbed the Kilimanjaro, another one who finished the Ironman. So those got a lot of viewership and a lot of comments. And you're going to say, but this doesn't have any impact on the business. But here, the guy who climbed the Kilimanjaro is a big guy in legal. You need to, you need to have that contact information and that personal information. When you go talk to him, oh man, I saw you climb the Kilimanjaro, that's great. That's an icebreaker that makes creating a relationship with the legal department much easier and it moves the business and get things done faster because you have already a social interaction with the guy, So here's our, which is quite fitting. This is actually our analytics, the page views. This is headquarters only. And you're going to say, oh, this is low, but I only have 290 people at headquarters. So I'm pretty happy when like 251 people read the Atrix HD transition. These are unique views. This is when we change phones, cell phones. We have a company-provided phone, so we change phones. And of my 290 employees, 251 read this. So they all know that we are changing phones. They know what they need to do. It's not going to disrupt the business because they don't know what they do with their old phones or how they're going to do with their new phones. Because we are a telecom company, so we should know what we are doing with our cell phones. In an intranet, we usually don't want people to spend a lot of time on it. It's a misconception that you want people to spend a lot of time on the intranet. You actually want people to go in, find what they need, and get out and go back to their, what we call regular work. So I'm okay that they spend only 5 minutes. I'm good with that. It's enough to read the information about the Atrix that I need everybody to know. Yes?
My question has to do with an earlier slide. With regard to posting comments and putting information. Did you have any problems with the legal or compliance area and getting that out there and having them wanting to weigh in as far as comments before they go out or getting comfortable with people putting personal information out there?
Yeah, no. Legal didn't want to review the comments, but I did involve them into creating the terms of use that I showed you. they really were involved into, reviewing it, and I obviously had a draft and everything, and they were involved in that, in the revision of that. And I think that they kind of made peace with it when they were able to participate in that process, so they never really requested to review the comments. I think they were smart because, reviewing comments can be time consuming. So if you don't want to, if you can avoid it, you don't want to do that. It can become like, unless you have an intern or somebody who can help you, you have a big staff, it's very hard to monitor comments. And it's very rare that you see an employee saying something because there are no anonymous comments. And your picture is right there for everybody to see, so people know that they are not supposed to say anything really bad. You might even have a problem that you don't have enough comments. It's more likely that to happen than the other way around, depending on the company. So how the business has changed because of this project. I saw a phenomenon. I know this is anecdotal, but it's like, it's everybody, it's on Mundo Nextel. Where are our network guidelines and standards? It's on Mundo Nextel. Where are our roaming agreements with, 80 different countries? They are on Mundo Nextel. Where can I find, the policy about our vacation? It's all Mundo Nextel. Because before there was not a central place for people to find all this information. So that makes things easier for all the employees because it's not distributed in multiple drives or SharePoints all over the place. It's just one single place that is searchable, or that the employees in a particular department can send just links via email. You don't have to attach like 500 files and send it to Brazil. Here are all the network plans. No, you just send a link, then everybody downloads all the documents from there. And also content owners, seeing that this is much easier to do it than try to get the word out. It's just like, let's post on Mundo Nextel. So you create a virtual cycle. And that's how you build a social intranet. You also hear people saying, I heard about this on Mundo Nextel. Did you see the guy who did the Ironman? He was on Mundo Nextel. Or we have a new phone. It's on Mundo Nextel. So here's my lessons learned. So like Adam said, start with a plan, especially if you are going with multiple countries or even just one country. Really is best to plan. It takes a lot, and a lot of people, involves a lot of stakeholders, getting everybody on the same boat. As far as the technology is concerned, be prepared. Even if you go with a cloud solution, you're still going to need IT. So, save some donuts, some Starbucks cards, whatever it takes your IT department, because you're going to still need them. And so you better build relationships with them. A lot of people ask me, so how do you get your executives, your boss to buy into this? I think start small, pilot with a group that really needs a tool like this, a social tool, a collaboration tool, and from there try to sell it to a bigger audience. And that's what we did. We pilot with IT and the customer experience folks. As far as people, to get everybody involved, just plan a high-touch implementation. I had meetings with all the content owners, with team room administrators. It's just not about if it's going to be social, you have to be social along with it. You use the tool, but you also have meetings in person, or you talk to people to get this going. Another thing, I don't know if all of you work with overseas operations. So if you go to a cloud solution, you really need to think at the level of internet access and browser level that your countries have before, because what happened with us is that in the beginning we did not have all that ready, but because the company decided to go to Gmail as an email platform, so they actually had to give everybody internet access. They have to upgrade the browsers. So we got lucky that we got in that wave and were able to use a cloud solution for the intranet. But ahead of time, if you are working with overseas operations, please make sure you have the right browsers and the right connectivity, enough bandwidth, because sometimes people have the internet connectivity, but they don't have bandwidth to watch a video on the intranet. So that's one of the things that you should work on. So I think.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
I'm actually facing some of the challenges that you face while planning this, because I work with 10 countries in Latin America. And I'm wondering how, and I don't know if it's based on how you're organized as a business, but do you have specific needs of information that are individual to that country, and how do you manage? So are there securities in terms of maybe people in Brazil can't see some of the information, they all need to see the regional information, but there are forms like vacation forms and HR, especially with the HR group,
Yes.
that are specific to Brazil and not Mexico.
Yes. Yeah, our system is permission-based. And one of the things is actually the permission is like all employees can see it, or only employees of certain countries can see it. Like, for example, my HR information at headquarters, if an employee from the market clicks on it, it's just say, this, you cannot access this area. So we do have, because there are differences, especially in the HR arena, because the benefits are not the same, and you don't want to create like a revolution, like we say, which is very common in Latin America, because we have different benefits, which also are in result of different HR regulations in different countries. So yes, the system is permission-based.
One of the issues we have is sort of this, we don't have an active directory, a unified active directory, so our authentication process in some ways needs to be manual, or at least we're working through that. It's either form-based or manual, and sort of relying on HR to be the governing body, which can be a challenge.
Yes.
So did you have that? I mean, LDAP and single sign-on are not an option for us today. They might be at some point.
Yeah. So we started actually without a connection with the Active Directory, because our IT in the beginning didn't want us to connect with the Active Directory. So our initial system is actually, we know who was hired. HR would let us know, and IT would put them into the system manually. And then that's how it was. So now we are going to do a connection with the Active Directory. Because of the Gmail project, IT had to combine create a true Active Directory and then combine all the Active Directories of all the countries. So we are going to, again, take a ride on their project and use the infrastructure that they built for the Gmail project for Mundo Nextel, for the intranet. Yes?
During the social media side, when you rolled it out, were there certain aspects of social media you focused on first, and was there training that you provided alongside of it?
Yes, I focused more on the blogs and on the Twitter feed, the forums. I started the forums, but I didn't see an uptake, and I just okay, I'm not gonna do it. Take the forums out. The forums that are open to all the employees. So I saw more uptake in the blogs and in the microblog, the Twitter feed. So that's what I'm focusing on. What I do for training is, in the beginning when the site was launched, I had lunch and learns. sessions, and also everybody who, part of the orientation is to show people the website. And every time that we have an upgrade, I also have, again, lunch and learn sessions for team room administrators and for regular users. So that's how the training is conducted. But like you said, a lot of the things are, self-explanatory. You don't need really to be heavy on training, but because it's a social intranet, a lot of the features might not be apparent to everybody, so it's nice to have a lunch and learn and get people going and all that.
Are you finding that internal communications is taking like a content curator role as well, reposting blogs that they find that are good, or redirecting employees?
Say it again.
Are you finding that internal communications, instead of just creating content and pushing it out, that they are taking the role of a content curator where they're driving employees to the content that's supposed to be good?
Yes, I think so, especially with the groups that are like content providers, like HR, accounts payable, finance, help desk. We are more, I feel that through this whole project, actually we got all closer, more social, and we built better relationships. So now they are working more closely with us in communicating with the employees, and we became more like curators of their content as opposed to writing things from scratch from them. Because also a lot of the things, as you know, internal communication, as you are launching something new or a basic change, every year is almost like the same thing. You have benefits enrollment, you have whatever. So a lot of those things are cyclical, and you can reuse a lot of that. So for that, we have already a process established. And for new things, now that we have a relationship with them, we have a platform, we have a tool to talk to employees, we are taking more a role of curators and helping and consultants to them on how is the best way for your department to communicate to the employee base, as opposed of a taskmaster taking requests for them and delivering, a little note here, a little note there, but more of as consultants to our departments. Yes?
Regarding ownership, did you say earlier that y'all marketing was the owners of the intranet?
Who?
Marketing or?
Yes, okay, so when the project started, I was part of HR. Internal communications was part of HR. And then there was a change in the structure of the company, and internal communications now is part of corporate communications, which now reports to marketing. So now, which is actually turned out to be a good thing, because I had already built the relationships with HR, and HR had their wiki and they were upgrading, but the marketing department was not doing so good with their session products and services. Then I became part of products of the marketing department. We revamped the whole marketing and services area. It's all nice and beautiful now. So it was actually good to move from one department to the other to build relationships with the different departments and actually make the intranet better for the employees, which is actually the goal of it. It doesn't matter where you sit in the organization, the intranet belongs to the company. It belongs to, to everybody and all the employees, and especially the social intranet, which counts on the employee to collaborate and to contribute to it. Actually, part of the tool is the social analytics. I actually can measure what are the people who contribute the most to the intranet by sharing files or making comments or whatnot. And quarterly, I announce who are the most active contributors, and they receive a gift card and also a thank you note written by our SVP of marketing, our top level.
Just a follow-up question. Mm-hmm. If you're not in a cloud-based type platform, mm-hmm. Is it typical then that marketing or another department would own it besides IT? Or we're currently going through an upgrade, and we're having this ownership issue between me and IT. So.
I guess what I would say, in actually what happened in my previous organization, which we had an internal intranet, the intranet was internal, it was a partnership. It was a great, actually, partnership between IT and HR at the time. We co-owned the tool, meaning IT owned the infrastructure. You know, they were responsible for maintaining internally the tool, you know, for the upgrades and all that. And HR owned the content and administered the, you know, the content owners and all that. So I think the holy grail of the thing is actually to have a co-ownership with IT. When you guys are partners, that's the best way to work.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
We went into an ad hoc Q&A, which I think is the best way to go. So thank you very much, Anna. That was a great insight into your deployment. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Great. So we do have an opportunity for a couple of more questions. I think we're not quite at time. I wanted to highlight a couple of the nuances that I think many of the nuances that Anna came up with. One of them, which was interesting, and we see in a number of communities, is that the intranet starts to take on its own identity. It's this place not only where you go to get access to information. It's on Nextel. It's in Mundo Nextel. In our company, we call it Inside the Igloo. It's this thing that you refer to, and it takes on its own identity. It's this single point source where you can go and get access to information, and also the place that you collaborate. It's not just a stagnant source of information. You actually work and collaborate on live documents right in this space. So it takes on an identity that's unlike what you're probably used to with today's internets. The second point that Anna touched on was this whole notion of social analytics. And I think the question was right with you around, is there a difference in terms of uptake of, I think, profile fill-outs with the different levels of staffing in the organization? The answer to that is we don't know, but we can find out. And it probably is different across different companies. Social analytics is the ability to be able to go measure what people are doing, interacting with each other and interacting with information. And you can generate reporting down to the smallest level of minute details to be able to identify those patterns and trends. And so perhaps in a company you have a different cultural makeup where you have some Gen Xers, some Gen Yers, and they prefer to use and interact with information and tools differently. And you can identify those trends and see what's working and what's not. And then you can go to look to reproduce those desired behaviors across the company. And social analytics is really one of those things that we haven't had before because we haven't been using social tools, so we couldn't measure them. And now we do, which is a really, really powerful tool for management and the folks in this room to be able to start to get their heads around. So I think you guys did a great job really highlighting that, you know, deploying a social strategy does require that you really step back and take a look at least these three broad categories that you need to consider. And while I think it's McKinsey quoted that 72% of companies have some type of social technology in use today, that doesn't mean that they're doing it right. You know, you deploy Twitter inside your company, you have a Facebook page outside and you claim victory. No, that's not the way it works. And you need to step back and broadly understand technology, operations, and culture. From a technology standpoint, do you want an on-prem solution? Your question about on-prem, does that change the interaction between IT and those that are responsible for internal communications? It does, because when you can control your own solution from a technology standpoint, in the marketing department, you now have a way to be able to configure that in a way that's closer to the way you would like to, without having to rely on IT and the backlog that's there. But that doesn't mean that on-prem or cloud is necessarily right for you. You need to take a look at what's required. Operations, you need to understand how your people work. What's the workflow? What are their expectations? What security requirements do you have in your company? Privacy. There's questions around moderation in this room and being able to control commenting. Where are you as a company on that continuum from open to closed in terms of a communication style? Because you can then dial up those controls within your solution. And then culture, probably the hardest one. Probably the hardest one, because we're talking about behavioral change. When I first joined my company, I didn't actually know a lot about the way we would work with social tools when I joined some time ago. And I would send an email attachment to my CEO, and he'd delete it. He would immediately delete that email, and he said, no, you post it inside the Igloo, and then we can all collaborate on it. It's tracked, we can comment on it, it becomes part of the corporate asset. And that's how he's reinforcing these behaviors, but you have to do that, and that's why it's so important to have those champions at at different levels. So with that, I thought maybe we could end with more Q&A. I did want to say that there is a way to get started if you are interested in evaluating more around the Igloo platform. What I wanted to do is offer to customize a community for you. What we'll do is we'll put professional services into it, we'll design it, we'll configure it, we'll even train you on it with our PS team. And it's cloud, so it can be turned on very, very quickly. And it's something that you can evaluate, and if it's something that works for your company, fantastic. If it doesn't, well, at least you've looked at another solution that's out there and being able to learn that much more. So that's available to you at igloosoftware.com/custom. And so I think we have a couple more minutes, is that right?
Yep, 5 more minutes.
5 more minutes? Why don't we do more of a Q&A here with our two guest speakers, Anna and Adam.
I have a question for you, actually.
Oh.
Have you seen any trends of people moving away from the governed intranet to more, maybe, 80, 90% socially driven, like the Facebook pages and Twitter kind of activity within the company? Or is there still, just have you seen trends moving in that direction?
Yeah, I think the learning that both Adam and Anna had around, we're going to open up our intranet for commenting, and now everything's going to go crazy. People are going to be posting inappropriate content, and it's a disaster. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And so now you've introduced more of an open communication style, and you've given them more tools to communicate. Wikis and forums and blogs and microblogging and the appropriate communication tool for the job, and they use it in the right way. They absolutely do. And so it's more open.
Not necessarily about the rules,
Yeah.
but about the navigation, the information architecture. You know what I mean? Have those trends moved in a different way of like structured to more informal, people relying on each other's networking through the social channels to get the information they need versus navigation?
I completely understand the question now. So I would say that there is a bifurcation in that. And I would say that the more ad hoc tools, microblogging, the tools that where you just want to put out a quick thought, that sort of thing, you're going to use that in a much more informal way. But you're going to try to direct it to the right audience. Maybe you'll mention them. Or with some tools like the Igloo platform, you can actually pick a channel, which is a certain audience for whom the communication is the most appropriate, and try to direct it instead of spam people. That continues to be much more ad hoc in its nature. And it looks like you may have a question or an answer too.
I could speak to it too.
Yep.
I think everything needs a home. So it needs to have that central spot where you know where to find it later once you forget about it. So one is to be able to search, but also to have a home. That being said, you could use a lot of the different tools like microblogging to be able to promote it or bring it onto the homepage so that others could see it when it's important, like the benefits. So I find that it's a bit of both. You're not going to get away from having a structured information architecture completely, but you're going to use a lot of the tools as like quick links to be able to get to that data faster.
Thank you.
Said more elegantly than me, yes.
No, both are very
Absolutely.
important.
For your tool, something like Igloo, sorry. I don't do well with that. Our company is a little different, and we actually introduced a social media-like platform, so something like Facebook for employees to communicate, and it's been perfectly fine. We don't even have terms and conditions yet, and have not faced any issues. I think people do recognize they're on a work platform and there are boundaries. But would something like this be integratable? Because there is that need for a home. There is a need for that central repository of information. When you're talking about social tools, the information flows so quickly that things get buried. It's just like anything else. You might miss your friend's child's birth on Facebook because 5 stories came before it. So would Igloo have an integration component? Because you can't pull that out now.
Yeah.
That it's being used and you have over 3,000 employees using it and say, oh, we're getting rid of this to implement this. That also has a social component, which is where sometimes things like SharePoint might be an option because you have some of those integration capabilities.
Yeah, the key to any successful social platform is it needs to integrate with the other tools that you use. It needs to integrate with your ERP and CRM, but as well as your other social tools that you might use,
Right.
be they Facebook or Twitter feeds. Those things all need to have integration points, and most platforms will have some level of API integration or built-in, as we have widgets that you can actually use to be able to do that work.
Where can we get Andrew's report?
What's that?
Right, Adam or Andrew?
My report, Prescient's report. You can find, do we have printed copies here?
We don't have printed copies, but we'll send you out a link to the report. And it's
Perfect.
what, a 12-page?
Yes, that's the summary report. It's also on our website. So if you look at prescientdigital.com, we have lots of different webinars and reports on there as well.
Will copies of this presentation be put in the link?
Absolutely. Well, you've been fantastic. Thanks so much. Thank you very much for our guest speakers as well.